here, index.html. I'm going to press enter. Remember, you can use any name here, but it must end up with the .html so that the code editor knows that you are you are coding a HTML file. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close that one. I'm just going to press shift exclamation mark. No, okay, I've closed that one. I'm going to open index.html file, and then I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to press shift 1, and then I'm going to press tab like that. And then now here you are going to that is a VS Code shortcut, so that it helps you design faster, but you don't have to worry about this. And the doc type, it tells that it tells the code editor that it tells the browser that it is a HTML, and the language is English, and then it is the head. The head, it is the section that it is not displayed to the user. You are even when you go to visit the website in the browser, you don't see the head. The only part that you see is the body, and I'm going to explain that, and I'm going to show you that. And here the title you can write anything, but in this case I'm just going to say CSS tutorial, and I'm going to show you what it does. So if I control and save, and then I go to my folder, and I open that folder. It is somewhere here. You can see the HTML tutorial, and when I open it, I open the index.html with my browser. That is the Chrome browser that I'm going to be using in this case. You can see that our page is still blank. That is because we have not typed anything, but here at the top you can see our title here, which is the CSS tutorial. Remember, we went through some of this in the HTML tutorial, and the link is in the description. So I'm just going to close that, then onto that one, then I'm going to go back to my VS Code. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to maybe let me use a button so that we can be able to know how the CSS works. So I'm just going to create a button like that, and then maybe I can say trial. Maybe I can say it is a trial button like that, and then I can control, I can save, and then when I open my browser and refresh, you can see now our button here. So what you're going to do now, you're going to use the CSS to style it. Maybe you can give it a background color, maybe a color, maybe you can enlarge it, we can give it maybe something called a padding, and I'm going to explain this. I'm going to explain all of this in this tutorial. So I'm just going to open here. Maybe let's say we want to give it a background color. So what you're going to do, you are going to come here inside the head. We are not going to touch the body. We're going to come inside the head. So you can click there like that. And now you can type style like that. Then you can see it here. You can type like that, style. And then now what you're going to be if you want now to maybe to style this button, you can use there are several selectors. They are called CSS selectors that you can use. So in this case, maybe I want to, because it is just a one button, I can just use button, just say button, and then I'm just going to open curly brackets like that. And then now if I want to maybe to give it a background color, I can say background color, and you can see, you can press enter, and then now you're going to choose the color that you want to give it. Maybe I want it to be a LED button, so like that I'm going to save. So this is the selector, and this is the property, and now this is the value. So in our case, selector, what we have selected is a button, the one that we have here, the try button, and we want to give it a property of background color, and now the value should be LED. So let's control and save, and we go back to our browser, and when we refresh, you can see that now our button has a background color of LED, but you can see now the text is still black, and it still looks ugly. So maybe we should try to style it a little bit, and you can maybe give it a color of maybe white. So what you're going to do is go back to our code editor, and just below that background color we can say color, and color simply means the color of the text inside that button. So when you press enter, so we can decide which color that we want, then that is the value for the color property. So in this case I'm just going to give it a white color, white, that, and then when I control and save and go back to the browser and refresh, you can see now the color is white. And now maybe we can the button is small, so maybe I was thinking we can enlarge the button a little bit so it looks a little bit good. So I just going to come here, and then now we're going to give it a height. A height is the size, the height size of the object or the selector. So I'm just going to give it a height of maybe 50 pixels. You can use the pixels, you can use VH, you can use EM, and you can use there are a lot of values that you can use when it comes to height, but most of the time I like using pixels and VH, and I'm going to show you how each and everything works with them. So I'm just going to control save like that. Then if I go here and refresh, you can see now the height of the button has increased. Maybe let's talk about how we can increase the width so that it looks somehow good. So just going to come here, just below here, and you can talk of the width like that. And then maybe we can give it a width of 100 pixels. And let's see how it's going to look like. So just going to refresh, and you can see now our button is a little bit good, but now the thing that I think we should be thinking for now is how we're going to remove this border. As you can see, we have a black border in our button, and we want to remove that. So we are just going to come here in our code editor, and then below the width we can say border, we want it to be none. And when you say border none, and we control and save and go back here and refresh, you can see that the border has disappeared. Maybe we want to get the border back. You can just say, you can just come here and you can say, just delete this one so that you can see. You can just say border. You want a border to be maybe 1 or 2 pixels. Let's use 2 pixels. Solid. You're going to understand each and everything, and maybe the color. You want to have a color, black color, maybe like that, maybe black, and then when you control and save, and then when you come in your browser and refresh, you can see that now we have our border. But in this case we don't want a border, so we are just going to keep it as a none. So I'm just going to delete that and then say none. And as you can see now in our browser the border is not there. So what we want is we want at least these corners are very sharp, and we want maybe to keep them to look like they are round, to give them maybe a border radius. And what you're going to do, we're just going to give a property that is called border radius, yeah. And maybe we can also use 10 pixels, so we can say maybe 10 pixels, and then control and save, and then you come here and refresh. You can see that now our button looks like, yeah, it looks more appealing than it was before. So the other thing that I think we should do is maybe increase the size of this text. It is a little bit smaller. So what you're going to do, you're just going to come and below this you can just say font size like that. And maybe you can see here the code editor is giving you options. You have large, you can select large, larger, medium, small, smaller, x large, small large, etc. And also you can use pixels. So let me just use larger, and let's see how it's going to look like. So I'm just going to come and refresh like that, and you can see now the text is bigger now, and the button is looks at least somehow. So what you want is that maybe we want when we the cursor goes around the button, at least it indicates to the person or the client using our website that this button is clickable. So what you're going to do, you're going to change the cursor, and as you can see now, the cursor by default it is the one that I'm using right now. But when I come here in a code editor and give a property called cursor like that, let's enter, and then now you can use a pointer. I want the cursor to be a pointer. So when I take my cursor here, you can see it changes. Not I hope you can see everything. And just you see when I am across the button, my cursor changes to a pointer, and then when I withdraw my cursor, then it gets back to normal. So that indicates that the button is clickable. So we are going to add interactivity using JavaScript, but at this moment we're just learning on how we are going to be designing, we are going to be styling our HTML. So maybe also maybe add something to do with border. Well, let's add a shadow. Let's add a shadow. Maybe. As you can see right now, we don't have anything. But as you can see now, there's nothing that is happening when we don't have a shadow and the button looks it's okay. It's a little bit good, but we can make it better. So let's add it shadow that so that when we hover on it, it's going to have a shadow, and also maybe some styling there such that at least the user will be excited on how our website looks like. Okay, so let's add that effect, that style. So what we're going to do is that we're going to say button. Now this is a selector. We're selecting the button, and we are going to put and then we're going to say hover. So this one. So all these styles that we're going to put here, they are going to be visible when we hover on the button. So maybe we want to maybe so that you can understand. Let's say maybe our background color should turn maybe to blue when we hover. Okay, so let's see. So as you can see, right now the button's background color is red, but when I hover, the color turns to blue. Okay, so that is exactly what we are talking about. So maybe what we want to also have when we hover is maybe we want to have a shadow. So I'm just going to come to my code editor like that, and then I'm going to say box shadow like that, and then we're going to put 3 input values, so 10 px, 10 px, and 10 px. I'm going to explain what is everything here, and I'm going to say lgba. I like using lgba like that, and maybe here you can use maybe 0.5, something like that. I'm going to explain everything, and here you can use maybe black, then also here you can also do that instead of wasting a lot of time doing So let's take a look and see how our button looks like. So when you come here and we refresh, you can see that there is nothing changing, and that is because we are going to see those styles when we hover. So let's hover, and when you hover, you can see that the color is still changing, but the box shadow is not working. Let's take a look on what should be the what is the problem. So what's okay, what do we have? Okay, we have this color should be maybe okay, this should be maybe 1.5, and then you control and save. Let's take a look, then we refresh and we hover. Okay, the shadow is not visible at the moment, but I'm just going to work on that, and then let me see where we may be having a problem. So box shadow, and then 10 pixels, 10 pixels, and then maybe let me take this one. Let me cut this one. Just going and paste it here so that you see that it's going to work. Refresh it. Okay, the shadow is not working, but just going to work on it in a little bit. So let's focus on something else. So before we work on that, so what I'm going to do is that as for now, you can see that we can style this button. We have increased the height, the width, and also maybe they have given it a color, background color, a text color, and also the something called. Now what we want to do is we want to add a padding. Now padding is the space inside the button. So it is the space from the top of the button to the maybe where the text is, and also that is the padding top, and then we have padding right, and we have padding left, padding bottom, and we have padding left. But we're going to be having another property called margin. Margin is the space now outside the button or outside the baby tag or the div that you're using. So in this case, a padding is inside, it is the space inside, but the margin is the space outside. Now let me show you how they work. So maybe let's put a margin. Let's start with a margin so that you can understand. So now, as you can see now, our button is a little bit close to the top, and a little bit close to the left side of the screen. We don't want that, so we want it to be a little bit far from the left side of the screen, and a little bit far from the top. So what you're going to do is you're going to add a margin top so that it is far from the top. So what you're going to do is just going to come here. You're going to say margin top, and as you can see here, margin top, and maybe you can say you can give it, maybe you can use percentage, and you can use 30%. You can use 30%, and then you can control and save. And then when you refresh here, you can see now our button has moved from the distance from the top to where the button is. It is the 30% of them. And then if we want the button now from the left maybe to somewhere here, you can also use margin left. You can see it here. You can also give it 30% so that you can see that. Then when you come and refresh, like that, you can see now the button is moving, and that is the distance between the that is the margin, and that margin is the distance outside the button. Now let's see how the padding works. Well, the padding, it is similar to margin. It is only that the padding, it is the space inside, while the margin is the space outside. So maybe let's take a look here. As you can see now, we want maybe to add a space from the top maybe to where the text is. So we're going to come and say we want to give a padding top also. And you can say 10 pixels. You can control and save. And then when you refresh, you can see that the distance have increased here. And also we want to add maybe another 10 pixels from the bottom. So you can just come here. You can see padding. I'm just going to show you another shortcut to do this. So I'm just going to say padding bottom 10 pixels, then control and save. Then if I refresh, you can see now we have 10 pixels from the bottom and 10 pixels from the top. And maybe now let's add a padding from the light, padding on the light and on the left. So to come here, we're going to say padding light, padding light here. You can give it 20 pixels, and maybe yes, we're going to add another one. Then now you can see you have 20 pixels here, but on this side we also want 20 pixels again. So what you're going to do, you're just going to come here to say padding left now, left, okay, padding left, here is 20 pixels, then control save, and then when we refresh, you can see now we have 20 pixels here, 20 pixels here, and 10 pixels here. And remember the position of the button is not moving. That is because we was interacting with the padding. But if we were interacting with the margin, it could have changed the position. So that is how the padding works. But this you can see there is a repetition here: padding top, padding bottom, padding light, padding left. So instead of typing all these, you can use a shortcut, and that is you can just give a property called padding. Now padding, and now you're going to give, you can give 4 values. The first value is going to be the top, padding top, and in our case we have a padding top of 10 pixels. And the second value is the padding light, which in our case is 20 pixels. And then the next one is the padding bottom, which is 10 pixels also. And then the last one is the padding left, which is 20 pixels also. And now if we delete all these like that, and we are left with this padding of 10 pixels, 20 pixels, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, and control and save, and then we refresh like that, you can see there is no change. And that is because this padding we have given it, it is simply the short form of what we already did on padding left, padding top, and padding bottom, and padding light. So when you say padding, the first value is the padding top, and the second one is padding left, padding the third one is the padding bottom, and the last one is the padding left. But instead of repetition of the padding top, padding left, and padding light, and padding instead of repetition of that, we can just give 2 values. And when you give 2 values like this, and we have 10 pixels and 20 pixels, what the browser will do is it will take 10 pixels and it will give it to padding top and padding bottom. Will be represented, will be having a padding of 10 pixels, and then padding left and padding light will be having 20 pixels. So if we control and save, you can see that we don't have any change. You see, we don't have any change, and that is because the browser or the code editor also gives it the 10 pixels here, 10 pixels here, and then 20 pixels here, 20 pixels here. But if maybe we happen to have only one value inside the padding, we have only 10 pixels here, the code editor or the browser will use the 10 pixels on both sides, and that will be the padding left will be 10 pixels, padding light 10 pixels, and padding bottom 10 pixels. So control and save, and then if we refresh here, you can see that there is no big change, because first of all, this is the 10 pixels here and the 10 pixels here, and also here we have the 10 pixels here, but also we have a margin of the, so we don't really, so when we put only one value, so maybe let's assume we put 20 pixels, so that to see now this one is going to take 20 pixels and 20 pixels on the sides, but I don't know why on the bottom it's not giving that. But for maybe for you to be on this side, maybe you can be giving the 2, you can be using 2 or 4 when you are working on something. So use 10 pixels, 20 pixels, then control and then if I refresh that, you can see now our buttons like that. So let's work on so maybe let's add a link here. Let's maybe add a link like that. Then we're going to use a hashtag because we don't want it to take somewhere. So we can say a link, the text to be a link like that, and then you control, and then when you refresh, I don't know where, I don't know why, maybe my internet, why maybe my internet is not working. Okay, why we have this? Okay, no, it is not supposed to be having this. It's not okay. It is a link, something like that, and then okay, then I'm going to maybe use another different, so I can make it test link, yes, like that, then control save, and then when I come here and refresh, you can see now our test link here. But now I want to show you another thing. When it comes to CSS, we have different types of selector. We can select element, we can select an element using the element selector, and that is this one that we have used here. This button, by using this button here, we have selected this button inside our HTML using a type of selector called element selector. And in most cases, we are not going to be using element selector because because if I add another button here, another button somewhere here, and I call it maybe what's an okay submit button. I call it submit button, and I control and I save, and I refresh. You will see that I refresh. You will see that it has the same style as this one, and that is because we used an element selector type of selector, and that is why we are not that is why we are getting the same style. But maybe let me show you another type of selector, and that is the class selector. So I can come here to this button that we started with. So I'm just going to give it a class like that, and I'm going to give it a class of trial button, trial btn like that. I'm going to copy that, and then when I come here, instead of having this button here as our selector, I'm just going to remove that. I'm going to now, when you're using the class selector, you always start with a full stop, that is a dot, and then now you paste your class name. So in this case, my class name is trial btn. So, and because I'm using a class, I have to start with a dot trial button, and this tells that the code editor that we are selecting this element using a class, and that class name is trial button. Okay, so I'm going to also do that here. This button, I'm going to remove that. Then I'm going to say dot. Maybe I can copy this top here. I can copy that and paste it here. That. So and then control and save. And then now when I refresh here, you see that now it is only this button that we have given this class name that it has that style, and the other submit button doesn't have any style, and that is because we have not given it any class or ID, or we have not even selected it to work to have a style. But now let's assume that I come here, create another button, create another style for a button, and just going to say maybe I want it to have a background color of green, something, yeah, something green, and then I want it to have a color of maybe white, that is the text color. And I want to give it maybe a height of maybe 50 pixels, and also I want to give it a width of maybe 100 pixels, also maybe a padding of I want it to look almost similar, so maybe a padding of 10 pixels by 20 pixels, 20 pixels like that. And then maybe, yeah, so, and when I refresh, okay, maybe I also want to remove maybe a border, so that don't want a border at the bottom, so agree, so like that. And then now I also want to give it a border radius, maybe 10 pixels. Then I refresh, and then I control and save, and then I come here. Now you can see that it is only this button that doesn't have a class. It is the only button that is having that style. And now you are wondering why this trial button doesn't have these features while it is also selected when we say button, because it is also a button and this is a button. But now what the code editors does, when it is reading the code from the top, it always picks the style that is more specific than the others. Like now the button, it is the general, it is in general. All buttons that we create in our HTML will be having these features. But when we give a button a class, and then we style that button, then we are more specific that we only want to design, we want to style that button. And that is why you can see that the trial button, it is not having the same, it is not having these styles inside the button, because the button is general while the class is more specific. We're going to understand each and everything as we move on. So right now you can see that we have this try button and submit button. And now what I want to do is I want to show you another selector, and it is called an ID selector. And this is how we do it. So I'm just going to go back to the code editor, and then I'm just going to say, I'm going to come to the submit button here. Let me create a space here. I don't know whether you see, maybe let me show you. So I'm just going to scroll like that. So I'm just going to give the submit button, I'm going to give it an ID like that, and then I'm going to give it an ID of submit button, submit btn like that, and then I'm going to copy that, then inside, and then instead of using the button now, I'm going to delete this button like that. And then now when you are using the ID selector, we start with a hashtag like that, and then now we put our ID name. Now in this case, the name was submit btn. Remember, in class we were starting with a dot and then the class name. But inside now, when we are using the ID selector, we are starting with an hashtag and then the name of the ID, and that tells the code editor that we want to select an element using the ID, which is the hashtag, and the ID name is the submit btn. And when it comes to class selector, it tells the code editor that we want to select an element using the class, and that is the dot, and the class name is the trial button. And then you can open the curly brackets, and then you can type now everything that you want to style the button. So if I save this, and then I refresh, you can see that there is no changes, and that is because we have already we selected this button using the ID, and we designed it using the ID. Now let's take a look on this test link and design. We want to style it somehow so that it also looks good. So what we're going to do, we're just going to come here. We have the test link, and maybe you can select it using the ID. Maybe let's use an ID. We call it test link, and then I'm just going to copy it, and then I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to start with the hashtag to indicate it is a ID that you're using to select this element, and then I'm going to paste my ID name for that object, for that element, and then I'm going to open the curly brackets, and then now I want to show you something. If we refresh, there's not any change because we have not styled it, but right now you can see that it has an underline, which we don't want. We want to remove it. So what you're going to do is you're going to come to our code editor, and you can say text decoration, like here, and you can say none. When you say none, it's going to remove the text. That line, see, the line has disappeared, and because we have removed it in our code editor using the text decoration. And also we want maybe to change the color. Let's see, change the color. Maybe let's give it a red color, at least visible. So I'm going to come, refresh. You can see now the link color has changed. Also, maybe we can give it maybe uh, let's say a background color, so that you can see a background color of maybe, let's use maybe yellow, like that. And then we're just working on how. Then you can see now, you can see I don't know whether you can see it, but let me enlarge it. Let me give it a height and a width so that you can see it. So I'm just going to give it okay, I'm just going to copy this height here, width, and also the padding, so that it looks almost similar to the other button. So I'm just going to do that. Then when I control, I have given it the height of the other buttons and the width and also the padding. So if I come and refresh, you can see now it is almost the size of the buttons. I don't know whether we can see it very well, but let me just give another color. Maybe that is somehow visible. I can give it a blue color, and also the text color I can give it a white. Let me use the white so that something appealing. So that, then I refresh. Then now you can see that it looks yeah, it looks something good. And also we want to maybe to add border radius so that we have rounded corners. So border radius like that, you can have of 10 pixels. Then take a look and refresh. You can see that is how. Now this, it is a button, but it is a link. It is a button, but it is a link. But this button is it's like a submit button, and also this one is like a submit button. You can use them in a login, and also yeah. So when you go through the HTML tutorial that I created, you can learn almost all of these features that I'm talking about. But now let's talk maybe let's maybe create maybe something. Maybe let's create an input tag. Remember all of this, I have made a I have shown I have taught I have made a tutorial teaching on how you are going to create all of these things that I'm doing right now using the HTML, and we are only learning CSS today, but also I'm just going to maybe explaining a little bit of HTML here, so that even if you don't have uh, more experience or you don't have more knowledge on the HTML side, by watching this tutorial it's going to give you a brief introduction to what you're going to be experiencing in the HTML. So I'm just going to come and I'm going to put an input tag here. I'm just going to say input type is the text, and then if I refresh, if I save and refresh our browser like that, you can see now we have our input, but it is not showing anything. So we want to give our client a hint on what they are going to be typing here, what is required here. So maybe I can come here inside this input here. I can say I want to give it a placeholder. Placeholder is a hint on what is expected to be filled there. So I can say you want your username, or you can say type your username, type username, and then control and save. Then when you come here, the refresh, you can see now inside we have a hint, type username, and when you click that you want to edit, the username disappears because it is not there permanent. It is temporarily there to explain to you that you are supposed to type the username there, but when you start typing, it already disappears. Now when you try to type, you can see this outline here, and it makes the input look more uglier when you want to type. So we have to remove it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, because we only have one input, I'm just going to use an element selector. So I'm just going to say I want to select the input, and I want to remove the outline, and I want to say it is none. Let's see whether it's going to remove that outline. Let's take a look. And then now if we, yeah, you see the line has disappeared. So at least it looks more appealing than it was before. See, so now you can type maybe your name. My name is John. Type maybe James. It looks more appealing. So let's enough of that. So let's also talk about something called font family. Now what you're going to do, you're just going to create a H1 tab here. Just going to come here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to, okay, but before I go to that, I'm just going to come here, and then now if you look, we only give this first trial button, it is the only one that we give a margin of top and left, but the other ones, they have not given them margin nor a padding. But basically, when you don't give it a margin, when you don't give elements margin, they all they by default set themselves to margin auto. And also the position, like right now the position that we have is relative. They have position relatives, which makes them follow each other, but the positions, but when it comes to property of position, I'm going to create another video that is going to briefly explain each and everything that you are supposed to learn and to know about the positioning. But right now, just know that we have some various values of positions. We have fixed position, static, relative, absolute position, and I'm going to explain to you all of that in another tutorial. So make sure to subscribe and share, and also like. And if you have something that you would like me to talk about, you can also make a comment on this video, and I'm going to make sure I have solved all your requests. So now let's talk about font width. Let's start by font family, so that you can understand what it basically means. Now I'm going to go to my body, and then I'm going to type H1 like that. Maybe I can say welcome to HTML, or welcome to CSS, something like that. Then I can control and save, and then maybe I can do a refresh, and you can see now where, because it is giving itself a margin, it's giving themselves a margin of auto. That is because they are following this button. So it is from this button to this, and then this, and that is the same order that I have done this. But if I take this, if I cut this heading here, cut this one, and I paste it here, that you can see that now we have our heading at the top, but the buttons are at the bottom here. And that is because the browser leads from the top to bottom, so it's going to be leading the test link at first, and then input, and then decreasing I think it is called a descending order. So it's from the top to the bottom. I will explain that. I have explained that very well in my JavaScript tutorial course, where I have also shown, and I have also proven that the the browser learns the code from the top to the bottom, and that is because it is only possible on JavaScript, and that is will be the first programming language that you're going to study, that is going to help you to add interactivity on the website. So if you have not if you want to be better, or you want to learn the website development, make sure after finishing watching the HTML the tutorial and the CSS tutorial, and getting a brief understanding of that, you can now dive into the JavaScript, so that you can now be able to add interactivity in your website. So what I'm going to do is this H1, maybe because it is only H1, well, maybe let's add a class. Okay? Class, we can say it is the heading. Then you can copy that, and then you can just come here, and before I finish that, you can see that this style is getting bigger, and we don't want, and we want maybe to separate it such that the style is on another file, and the HTML is on another file. So what you're going to do is you're going to come here, and we're going to create another file, and you're going to call it maybe style.css, and then you can call it any name, but make sure it ends with a .css, so that the code editors knows it is the CSS file that you are editing. Now let me show you how now to link the style.css with the index.html. So what you're going to do, we are going to come here to the index.html, and we're going to only copy the content inside the style. We don't need this opening tag of the style and the closing tag, so we're just going to cut that. then you're going to paste it inside the style.css file, and then if you control this and save the style.css file, and then you come here and let's remove this opening and closing tag of the style, and then if we control and save and we open our browser and refresh, you can see that all our style has disappeared. That is because we have not linked the HTML file with the CSS file. So what you're going to do is below this title, you can say link CSS. You can see here, you can click on it, and then by default, it is going to link uh, into the style sheet, and then the link to that, it is the style.css. So by default, it's going to look for a file called style.css, and that is the file that we have right here, style.css. So if we control and save, close this tab. So if I control and save here and refresh, you can see that our style is now back, and that is because we have already linked our index.html with the CSS. So this it makes our codes cleaner, and it helps us design and make our code more easier to go through, and also reduce our code size, so that we don't have to use a lot of lines, because we have differentiated, and it is so easy, because when you want to style something, you just need to get the maybe the class or the ID, or also the element name that you want, and then you can go back, you can jump to the style.css, and you can style that element. So we were talking about the HTML, talking about the font family. So in this case, I want to take this H1 and I have given it a class of heading. So I'm just going to copy the class name. So I'm just going to go to my style.css. Then below the input, I'm just going to start with a dot to tell the code editor that I want to select the element using the class. So and then I'm going to paste the class name, and then I'm going to I want to change the font family. So I'm just going to the properties, the font family. So the font family, and you can see now we have font family here, and then now there are a lot. So but you will, as you move on, you're going to be learning each and every one of them slowly. So you don't have to master each and every one of them. You just need to maybe to know one or two. So in this case, let me use Georgia, something Georgia, but it always gives you other options, such that when one fails, you can use the rest. So I'm just going. I want to use maybe Georgia in this case. I'm just going to delete the other one. So I'm just going to remove this comma because it's only one. If I refresh the page, you see the way it looks. If I refresh, you can see that the font family has changed. It is like the design of the font. So let's also try another one called Arial. So I say Arial, and you can see that giving me Arial here, but I don't want the list. I just want Arial only. So I'm just going to delete the list. Then I'm going to control save, and also I'm just going to save here the index.html and go back, and then if I go to my code to my browser and refresh, you can see now the font family is changing. But now I want to also add font weight. Font weight is the thickness of the text. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to below this, I'm going to say font. I want to maybe to add a font weight. So right here, font weight, and now you can give it 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 700. Let me use 700. I save and then refresh, you can see there's no that much change, but let me use 900, see whether you're going to see change. It is you know it, I think yeah, you see now it has changed. So you see the thickness of the text have increased. So if I put it back to maybe 500, that, then I save, then I refresh, you see like right now it is the font weight is 900. So if I refresh, you see now the font weight has decreased. Now let's talk about something called we want something called, maybe let's talk about the font size. So what you're going to do, you're going to, yeah, you can talk about font size like that. And then now we went through this. We talked about being large, larger, medium, small, but also we can have values. We can also say like we want the font size to be maybe 60 pixels. Let's take a look on how it looks like. So if I you see the normal font size, but if we refresh, you can see that now the font size of the H1 tag they have increased, and that is the 60 pixels. And then you can play with it. You can put it to maybe that. Also, you can refresh. You see now the font size is 30 pixels. And also we talked about something to do with text decoration. So maybe we can say let's maybe add a text so that you can understand properly. So we can say text decoration. We want to maybe let's use line through, see how it works. So most of these things you are going to learn them as you move forward, and as you handle more and more projects, you are going to be understanding each and every thing about these properties. So if I refresh, you can see that we have now an overline here, and this is mostly used when maybe the content is no longer varied and you don't want maybe to delete it in your website and something like that, because maybe when you delete it, it's going to bring something or it's going to make your website so messy. So instead of that, or maybe it is not still all the information is not validated, so you have to do this so that when the user interacts with that information, uh, he will now he will know that that information is not valid. So we can also use underline, can use underline that, and then control and save. And then if you refresh, you can see that we have an underline, and you can also use, I don't know whether you have an overline. Let's try. Let's take a look. Overline. Yeah, we have an overline. Let's take a look on how it's going to look like. Yeah, see, you have an overline. So that's how you're going to be working on with the text decoration. And also we have maybe something to do with text transform. So now transform, I'm just going to text decoration so that it does so that it looks so what you can see now is that it is only our W which is in uppercase. The rest of the letters are in lowercase. So maybe if you want to change the entire heading H1 tag to be uppercase, we're just going to come into the style.css and I'm going to say text transform. You can see text transform here, and you can say capitalize, lowercase, uppercase, and capitalize. It's going to make only the first letter of each name to be uppercase, and then uppercase, and then when you use text transform uppercase, it's going to transform each and every letter on that H1 tag to uppercase. We click on that. So okay, my power is running. So if we click on uppercase, like that. You can see that if we refresh, you can see that it is now in upper case. But when it comes to lowercase, let's use lowercase. So I'm just going to say that one, that, and then I'm going to say lowercase, that. And then when I say lowercase like that and refresh, you can see that now our line and our text is now in lower, our H1 text is now on lowercase. So this, we will use this when we want to do, maybe we want to the entire, maybe when you want to change the entire text, maybe to go to transform to uppercase, or you want to transform it to lowercase. And also we are going to be learning about the capitalize so that you are safer. But in most cases, you're not going to be using text transform because you already know what you are typing. So you don't really have to know each and everything. You are not supposed to be using each and everything. Some of them you're going to use them and continue project here and there. So you don't have to worry about it. What you work with. So let's jump into something called line height. And for us to be able to know how how the line height works, we're going to be needing to be having something to do with a paragraph. So I'm just going to come here and below this input tag, and maybe I can do this. I can just maybe add a paragraph here, and I can use roller like that, and maybe okay, let's break it somehow. We want to break it at this point, and using BR, it means it is a line break, and okay, also something like a bit good looking, so like that, and then line break there, and then okay, something like that. So save and it will flash here. Now you can see now our line is down here, but we don't want it down to be down here. So what we're going to do, we are going to uh, reduce the distance where which we set the margin that we set on this button so that each and everything can get back to normal. But also we don't have to do all of that. What we need to do, we can come to style.css, and let me show you how you are going to be doing this. So what you're going to do, at the top we're going to select each and every element in our HTML, and we want it to be by default, we want it to have a margin of 0, because as I told you, some of them come with a margin of maybe 10 to 2 pixels, a margin of auto, and they also have a padding, and we don't want that. We want to style each and everything the way we want it. So what we're going to do, we are going to select each and every element inside the HTML, and now we are going to do something to do with after getting each and everything of each and every one of them, we want to give it a margin of 0, a padding of 0, and such that when we are designing, such that when we are styling them, we are styling them from 0, knowing that we want them to look like this. So we are going to select all of them, and we're going to do that by shift 8, and that is the multiplication sign that we basically use when it comes to coding, but in this case it's going to select each and everything. So then we open the curly brackets, and then now each and every element we want it to have a margin of 0, maybe 0%. And remember, I told you, when you use a margin and you only give one value, it's going to use that one value on margin left, margin light, margin bottom, and margin top. And also we are going to give it a padding, and also we're going to give it a padding of 0%. That, and it will also work the same as the margin. When we give them the value, one value, only one value is going to use them on all sides of the margin, be it left, right, bottom, or top. So if I control and save, let's take a look and see whether we're going to have a change. We don't have that much change because as I told you, when the browser is going through your code, it only gives the more specific selector is given the top priority. So in this case, remember our trial button that we gave a margin top of 30% and a margin left of 30%. It is more unique. It is more specific to that element than the button is. So if we want to maybe change, we can change this to be maybe 5%. Let's give it a margin top of 5%, and also maybe a margin left of maybe 10. So you can see that if we refresh now, you can see that each and everything it is at least visible now. So what we want to do, maybe I want to lap all of this in a div so that we can be able to see now how we are going to put all of this content to be aligned here in the center, instead of learning from this side to this side and this side to this side. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come to the index.html, and then I'm going to create a div here. I'm going to say maybe dot container because it is what I want to. So dot container like that. Then now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut the crossing tag of the div like that, and then I'm going to paste it at the bottom. To paste it like that. And then now what I want okay, as for now there's no change because you cannot see any change, and that is because the div by default, it is taking the height, the height is the maximum content, which means if the content it is up to this point, that is where the div height is. And also the width is also the width by default is 100%. So we want to style the height of the div, and also maybe if we can be able to, we can also talk about the color, the background color of the div, and I'm going to show you how it everything work. So maybe let's so that you can see the div as I'm telling you. You can come below here. You can see dot container because it is the div that you want to select, and you want to select it by the class name. So what I want to do, I wanted to give it a background color so that you can see how it is before we even start styling it. So I'm just going to give it a background color of gray so that you can see it. So if I refresh, you can see what I'm telling you. So by default, the width it is 100%, and the height it is the maximum content. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the width. We're going to reduce the width at least, and also we're going to be maybe increasing the height a little bit so that we can have padding on the bottom left. And also so I'm going to do, I'm just going to come here, and I'm just going to give a width of maybe 50%, and also a height of maybe we can give it 700 pixels or maybe 80. Let's use 70 ph. That, control and save that, and then refresh. Now you can see that we now have the width have changed to 50%, and the height is 70 page. So what we want is we want to add a margin top. We want to add a margin top and also a margin, a margin, a margin left. But we don't, but instead of using that one, because we want this div to be at the center, we can style the body. The body, it is basically what it is containing, each and everything that the user is going to be seeing and interacting with. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come here, just going to type the body. I'm just going to select the element using the element name. So I'm just going to save the body and then apply that. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to maybe give it a okay, I'm not going to give it a margin because it is the entire page. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say justify content, and I'm going to say center. And now justify content center, let me show you how that works. So if I refresh, okay, it's not working. I don't know why, but let's take a look. Justify content center. Okay, let's add something called position relative, and let's take a look whether it's going to do it. Okay, so it's not working. I don't know why, but we can also do this. We can, instead of using this one, you can delete that one. You can style the container itself. You can use margin. So you can give it a margin, and then on margin on the top, we want to maybe to have a margin of 10%, and now we want on the left and the right we want to have 20%. So refresh that one, and then if you save that one and refresh, you can see now we have our container located at the center of the page. And now you can see, now I hope you can see now how we use margins, and also now I'm going to show you how to use padding. So what I want is I want all of these, all of the text I want them to be arranged at the center of the container. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to the dot container, and then I'm going to say maybe let's just justify content. I don't know why it is not working, but let's take a look and see whether it's going to work. It's not working yet, so I don't know why, but let's use something called text align. So if I use text align, I use center, then I control and save, and then I refresh. You can see now all our text have been arranged into the center like that. And now maybe let's add a padding on the top, or maybe the left side is maybe the left on the left, the right and the left side are okay. So the only thing that you want to change is the padding top. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give it a padding top of maybe 20 pixels like that, and then I refresh. You can see now it looks somehow appealing. So what I want to do is I want to change the color of our title here, and also I want to increase the size. Also we talked about that. So what we are going to do, we're just going to look for that heading, and we have it. So we are going to be looking for the font family, and we're going to take it back to 700, and then okay, yeah, that is the font. And then we want to do maybe 50 pixels. Font size, we want it to be 50 pixels, and then maybe we want to change the color to be white so that it can be visible. Then color should be white, but take a look at how it looks like now. Refresh, you can see now, welcome to CSS. But now what we want to do now is we want to style maybe this button so that these two buttons, we want them to be okay. We want this type, this input type, we want it to maybe to be below this. So what we're going to do, we're just going to come, we're going to look for that input. Where it is the input, here it is the input. So what we're going to do, we're going to we use the element name. So we have the output input here. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it maybe something to do with okay, we don't want to, I don't want us to use the margin, but as you can see now, we can decide that we want these two buttons to be at the top and then these two buttons to be at the bottom. So what you can do, we can come and we can do something called, we can add a span. Maybe it is an HTML tag which it is basically used to maybe style some parts which it doesn't have a big impact. It is not like a div. So what I'm going to do, okay, I'm just going to maybe this input tag, input link, I want to, I'm just going to give it a margin. Okay, not a margin. Okay, let's take a look on how I want us to remove the test link, this link and this input from this. So I'm just going to create a span, and then I'm going to put all of this inside that span, and then I'm going to, yes, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a span here, just going to create a span here below the submit button, span like that, and then I'm going to cut the link here. Okay, maybe instead of using that method, let me show you how you can use something called display. So it is a property, it is a CSS property, and it is the one that I think it should suit this. It should suit what we are trying to do. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do here is I want to arrange all of this to be to be to be displayed in a grid way, like to be to be in a one column, to be in a one column. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come here and I'm going to go to style and then dot container, and we're just going to come here and I'm going to say display should be grid, then I control it. So if I refresh here, you can see that now we have our try button here, submit button here, test link here, and then the type name, then we have the paragraph. And that is because when you put the grid, it ensures that each and every element, it is alone on one line. So like this is a line, and this line, it only consists of the try button, and the next one has the submit button, the next one have the test link button and the type you and the input here. Now we have the problem, so that is the display. And then now if we change the display to be flex, something like that, then now I refresh, you can see that now the content is learning out, and that is because now each element, it has its own column. So we have this column, try has its own column, submit is column, testing is column, input is column, and the paragraph is column. So if you want to briefly understand the display property, I have created a video describing each and every value of the display property, and the link is in the description. So make sure after watching this video, you jump right into that link, and you can open it, and it's going to take you to that video, and you can learn the display property in details. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it to be what to be by default. So I'm just going to remove that. So if I refresh, we can have what we can still have what we had. So what I want is I want this paragraph, and I want this paragraph so that I can show you what we mean by or how we can style the line height and maybe letter spacing, or maybe yeah, something like this. So it is going to be more visible when you're using the paragraph. So what I'm going to do is a paragraph. So it's the only paragraph inside the container. So I can also select it through. I can just come here and I can say dot container and then a space and then paragraph. I want to enter I want to select a paragraph that is inside the container. So I can say I want maybe to color. I want the color to change to white so that it is visible. So if I save that and refresh, you can see that now the color has changed. So if maybe let's assume we want to maybe now add a line height. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come here, say line height. I can give it maybe pixels. Let me use 20 pixels. And when I save, and I hope you will see, take a look very well so that you see. So when I refresh, you can see that the distance, the line height have changed, and the line height, it is the spacing between the lines. So let me use a great value so that you can see. So let me use maybe 40 pixels. So if I come here and I refresh, you see now the distance between the lines, it is what we talk about when we mention something to do with line height. So let me also show you something called property called the letter spacing, and this is the distance between each letter. So maybe I can use maybe 5 pixels and I save, and when I refresh, you can see now almost each letter, it has a space of 5 pixels, but but some of these properties you're not going to be using them in most of the cases. So the only thing that you are supposed to know is that in case you face a problem that requires this knowledge, you can be able to apply the knowledge. So in most of the time, you're not going to be applying some of these properties. So like letter spacing, I is a it is in most cases you're not going to be using it, but it is better you know it. But in line height, you're going to be using it in most of the cases. So let me talk you through about something that we call opacity. Now I know you are wondering what is opacity, but I want to maybe apply. Let me use this test link button, which is the blue button here. It's the system button. So I want to give it an opacity. And opacity ranges from 0, which means 0%, to 1, and 1 is the 100%. So let me take a look. So let me set this. I'm just going to give it an opacity, and I'm going to give it of 0.3, which means it is 30%. 0.3, and then if I save, let's take a look, see whether it's going to change. Yeah, you see now the opacity, the button is not visible, not that much visible. That is the effect of the opacity. So if I increase that one to 0.6, that is 60%, 0.6, and I save, then I'll come and refresh. You can see now it is a little bit visible. So if I go back and maybe put it back to 1, that, and then I control and save and refresh, you can see now the button is back to how it was before. So instead of putting an opacity of 1, we can delete that one, because by default the opacity is 1, which means it is 100%. So it's going to refresh that one. As you can see now, our test link is the same. So with that, I want to maybe explain something to you. So if when we came to the dot container here, I want to show you another property called overflow. So when we come here and we said we use the property called display, and we give it a value of flex, we saw that the text, the content overflowed like this, overflowed. If we don't want, if maybe we have to use this one and we don't want this this content to be visible, you can use something called overflow, property called overflow. Say overflow, and we can say hidden. By default, overflow is visible, and that's why we can see it, and that's why we can see the content that has overflowed, which is this one. But when you use overflow hidden, we are not going to see that. You see, it's not going. But this input, it is white in color, and the body is white in color, so you're not seeing very well. So but if you can take a close look, you can see that the input now, the input is, yes, it has overflowed, but it is not visible outside the container. So that is how you use overflow, is hidden, and by default you can use hidden, but by default it is visible. So when the content is when the content overflows, then it is visible by default, but you can hide that hidden. But in most of the cases, make sure that you avoid your content overflowing inside the container. So I'm going to control and I'm going to save that, and I hope this video has helped you and you have gotten a brief understanding on the CSS. And also remember, if you didn't watch the HTML tutorial that I created, make sure that you watch it, so that you can be able to know how the HTML works, and the link is in the description. And before you leave, make sure to subscribe, comment, share, and also you can you can reach up to me, so that I can guide you on how to make website. See you on the next